Come on. 2, 3.
Well, good morning. Welcome back to the Broadcast Retirement Network. I'm Jeff Snyder. This is BRN AM for Thursday, May 5th, 2022. And our top story today, most adults are focusing on non-retirement savings. Joining me now to discuss this and a lot more, Tara Falcone is the founder and CEO of Reason. Tara, great to see you. Thanks so much for joining us on the program again this morning.
Yeah, of course, Jeffrey. It's always a pleasure to be here.
I love catching up with you, Tara, because you bring a lot of not only experience working with high school students and retail investors, but also private markets experience. Let's in our first segment, though, let's talk about, we've got inflation, and this is a perfect segue from our show yesterday on real estate and inflation. We've got a lot of financial pressures on the American people and people around the globe, quite frankly. Fuel prices going up, food prices going up. We've had shortages, and war going on in Ukraine with Russia invading has put a lot of strain on things like fertilizer. So I want to get your sense of where people are focusing their attention financially right now.
Yeah, so based on what we're seeing in the in the markets, and then also what we're seeing in kind of internal survey data that we are gathering from our audience base, people are really kind of delaying their retirement savings and focusing those dollars on shorter and medium term goals. And I don't think that's anything that should surprise anybody. I think we're all sort of feeling the squeeze, whether it's at the grocery store or at the gas pump. And so, our near term needs are those things that we have to pay for right now and in the next year or so. And when prices for those things are going up, it's, putting money away, socking money away for something that is decades away and ultimately restricted in terms of, when and how you can use that money. I think the trade-off is pretty obvious there for a lot of people.
Yeah, it's like not seeing the forest for the trees, right? And the thing that you and I have talked about, I think the last time you were on, you talked about buy now, pay later loans. But a lot of people are using credit cards. I just read this stat this morning as I was compiling my daily newsletter. A lot of people are gathering more debt on their credit cards. As someone who's an advocate for, like yourself, who's an advocate for not only financial literacy, but financial independence, what's your reflections about that?
Yeah, I think it's only becoming even more and more of a dangerous game. As interest rates are starting to increase and inflation is going up, now all of a sudden you're putting higher cost items on very high cost debt. And so, the average balance on those credit cards are ballooning. And then you've got the interest rates that are compounding on that balance is going to balloon. It's just a recipe for disaster over the long haul. And so I think what people can do, to try to stem the bleeding a little bit in the meantime is to really cut from those longer term savings as much as they can or need to, such as retirement savings, to cut from their budget and any ways and places that they can. Maybe, we've seen a shift to, from name brand items at the store to off-brand items. Things like that are ways that the consumers can save money.
Yeah, I think that's really important. Shifting, it's okay in times like this to shift away from long-term savings like retirement. Let's also remind the audience around 529 plans, college savings, your IRAs, your SEPs, all those things are considered long-term. Rather than stack on debt on top of a credit card, Tara, it really does make sense to pay what you need to, but also look at that budget. Make sure that what you're buying, like paper toweling and things like that, you're buying at a reasonable cost.
Yeah, definitely. I think we, kind of always talk about putting your financial oxygen mask on before you help others. And that really does pertain to, unfortunately, as uncomfortable it makes people, it does pertain to the parent-child situation and dynamic. It's like, well, if you need to pay for, essential items today, then you may want to or need to pull from things like a 529 plan or reduce contributions to something like a 529 plan in order to fund those expenses. So it's a struggle, but, sit down, look at your budget, go line by line through all of your budget items. And, I would be surprised if you can't find at least like one or two things that maybe you can pull back on or cut out entirely. I know we're doing it, here in my household. So it's possible.
Yeah, and by the way, we're doing it too. I think you got to always tighten your belt. And I always say you got to stay small. rather than, and what that I mean, I think waistline, of course, but also when it comes to buying things and taking on credit card debt and things like that, Tara, it's always better to not consume as much. You can still enjoy life if you don't have that cool shirt or the, cool pair of pants, right? I mean, you can have good experiences regardless of what you're wearing.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, ultimately one of the things that I've learned and I try to teach to younger folks that we educate about financial literacy is that other people care much less than you think. So ultimately, whatever you're spending your money on should really be for your own personal enjoyment and benefit. And there is, a certain amount of kind of quote unquote self-care, whether that's buying the cool shirt or, purchasing a coffee out once in a while, or whatever it might be that makes you feel good about spending the money that you work hard to earn is fine. But when you start to think about purchasing things or spending money on things because you hope other people have a reaction to it, think critically about those things, and maybe those are the first places that you might be able to cut.
Yeah, it's almost like the FOMO that we talk about on social media. I think it's kind of filtered its way into material things. Tara, I need to take a very quick break. When we come back, Robinhood has cut 9% of its workforce. What's it mean for retail investing? You're going to want to stay tuned right here on BRN AM. Imagine a new television network that will make you richer, healthier, and in control of your financial future. This network is for the policewoman in Nashville, Tennessee, the baker in Dubuque, Iowa, the teacher in Lexington, Kentucky. We want to make the idea of savings and retirement culturally relevant. But what do you see as a defining issue of the midterms, especially for the smaller businesses? I mean, they are the lifeblood of the American economy. Featuring exclusive interviews, current affairs, and docuseries. 33 years old, you retired early.
The philosophy is money only matters if it helps you live a life that you love.
But you got to start thinking about retirement as soon as you get in.
The Broadcast Retirement Network will drive very high engagement with premium partnerships. So this isn't retirement and savings for your parents or grandparents. This is for all Americans. And we're going to change the way you think about money. Welcome to the next frontier of retirement and savings. This is BRN, the Broadcast Retirement Network.
Are you stuck with a low credit score? A credit report and score that's causing you to be denied credit or pay higher interest rates than others for the same things? Then do what Terrence did and call Credit Repaired for your free credit evaluation to help restore your credit.
I started thinking about buying a new house, and my score wasn't where I needed it to be. I called and spoke with one of the representatives, and we just had a good conversation, and I liked what he was saying.
Just one call for his free credit evaluation was all it took to start back on the track to repairing his credit.
I'm seeing the deletions and I'm getting the report, so I know something's being done. It does make a difference to me.
All it takes is one call to get started.
Credit Repair has given me a second chance to have a better credit score.
Don't let a low credit score hold you back another day. Do what Terrence did and make the call for your free credit evaluation.
Call 800-819-4152. That's 800-819-4152. Again, 800-819-4152.
Welcome back. We're talking this morning to Tara Falcone of Reason. Tara, thanks as always for staying with us this morning.
Yeah, of course. Excited to talk about this next topic.
Yeah, absolutely. And before I say that, I have to get this off my chest. I remember the Cosby episode where Theo really wanted this cool shirt. His parents wouldn't give him the money, and his sister, who was played by Lisa Bonet, I can't remember her name, made it for her, and his friends thought it was the coolest thing. So you can get by without buying the coolest thing. Look at Theo Cosby, did a great job. All right, Tara, I don't know where that came from, but look, we have to have a little culture in our, some type of culture in our show. Let's talk about Robinhood. Robinhood, who was a darling not too long ago, GameStop, all these shorting that we talked about last year, they have cut 9% of their workforce. I want to get your reaction to that.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of a lot of factors. They, had an incredible start to last year where there was significant ramp up in the number of users on their platform, number of, daily and monthly active users. And in order to, really kind of support that growth, they needed to hire lots and lots of people. However, it seems as though they maybe overshot exactly how much they needed. Retail investing activity and interest kind of dampened through the end of last year. And now all of a sudden, they've stated that they have duplicative roles and that they've got redundancies that they need to cut. And so they are, cutting 9% of their workforce in an effort to try to save costs and allegedly also try to become profitable at some point in the near future. That remains to be seen. But I think it has, a lot to say with just sort of, the pressure that is on both public companies and also like very heavily venture-backed companies, tech companies specifically, as they're, heading into the public markets and now have to answer to other people outside of, the private shareholders. They've got public shareholders to answer to now as well.
Yeah, we just saw that play out at probably the best case with Twitter, right? I mean, that just played out with Elon Musk. We're not going to get into all of that. I think people are pretty familiar with it. But what does this say about the retail? All that, and I go back to things like streaming, Zooming. These are things that we were doing at the height of the pandemic. A lot of people had extra time, so they said, oh, okay, I'm going to go be a stock market trader. It almost takes me back, Tara, to the day trading days in the late 90s, early 2000s, where you quote unquote couldn't move. What does this say about the retail investor now?
Yeah, I think anybody who didn't think that this was going to happen as life sort of came back to life and everybody's able to go back outside and to travel more and going back to the office or working more, less remotely, I think was being naive and thinking that this retail investing, activity, meaning daily trading, was here to stay. And so, when you look at the bulk of Robinhood's revenue coming from payment for order flow. And now all of a sudden, trading revenue per user is down something like 60% or what have you. That shift is pretty obvious. And it seems as though maybe they were a little too slow to make the cuts. But retail investors, I think, are still interested. But I think they, want to know, okay, how can I take advantage of this in a way that's less time consuming for me, but ultimately still going to help me achieve my goals? And frankly, that's really what we're focused on at Reason. We focus less on what you do, and we focus much more on why you take those actions.
And let me ask you about the model for a second. Not necessarily the Reason model, but you can certainly talk about that. But the Robinhood model, they made money on the deal flow. So there was an incentive in a way to churn. I'm not accusing them of that, but that's something that we study on when we're taking the Series 6, 63, and 7 about churning accounts. You don't want to do that. And you've seen a lot of the other brokerage firms kind of follow Robinhood in waiving fees. Do you ever see a time where we kind of go back to charging just these explicit fees for making trades?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think, Robinhood has obviously done a great job pioneering a service, meaning like no fee trades. But ultimately, that service has now been commoditized. And so players like Robinhood are now trying to figure out, okay, how do we differentiate ourselves amongst the competition to get people to want to be loyal to our service rather than just, signing up for an account because they'll get a free stock or free little bit of crypto. And then ultimately having, little pots of money across all of the players. How do they get all of that person's money into one particular market player? And I think that's really what we're going to start to see, is that they're going to start differentiating on different aspects of their product or providing, more features that provide more value add to their users. There are some companies like Public, for example, who have gone away from payment for order flow and instead are offering optional tipping, which from what I've heard is actually working for them. So it's funny. It's sort of an optional commission on a trade that you get to set the amount that you want to pay rather than it being a percentage of your trade or a certain amount on per share or what have you. And then there are others that are considering subscription models. There are others that, are looking at just like interest on cash balances. It's all kind of over the place. And I think it'll be really interesting to see which revenue model seems to stick with consumers going forward. And I think it's ultimately about, how you add value to the consumer's life and how they perceive that value that you're adding.
Last question. I think when we talked about this last year, Robinhood was putting people on campuses, similar to what the credit card companies did when I was a young graduate from Hofstra University back in 1990 something. Is that going to continue? And I mean, I know you're not working for Robinhood, but do you see that those are the future investors, right? And that's a real opportunity. It's hard to get existing people to move over from one platform to another to deplatform. Do they still continue to do that, just like the credit card companies still continue to make all those offers to these kids in college?
Yeah, I haven't heard much about Robinhood's initiative of going onto campus, which they announced, I think, in last September. And so I'm not sure if that's something they're still continuing, if they're just kind of doing it on the down low, or if they've stopped it altogether. But I would think that your sort of like coffee house chats about investing may not be the most value add to get those people who are likely not quite ready to start investing yet onto your platform. But rather, we think that the better way to do that is to build rapport and brand awareness and trust with those young consumers through something like a financial literacy program that actually teaches them about all aspects of financial life, not just investing, but helps them get a solid financial foundation beneath them. And then hopefully you've built that brand trust and awareness with them in the kind of 18 to 24-year-old time horizon of their financial life, so that when they graduate and they start earning money, then they'll be ready maybe to come to your service and start using your platform instead. So personally, from my perspective, that's what I think the better strategy is. But and we're actually seeing some of that happening. So Stash last year just acquired a company called PayGrade to create what's called Stash 101 in an effort, I believe, to do that same strategy. So we'll see what Robinhood decides to do, if they'll follow in suit or try to do something different.
Yeah, Robinhood, Little John walking through the forest. Tara Falcone, always a pleasure. Had to have a Disney reference there. Always a pleasure chatting with you. Thanks so much for joining us, and we look forward to having you back on the program again very soon.
Yeah, thanks, Jeffrey. It's always a pleasure. We'll see you soon.
That wraps up this episode of BRN AM. Have a topic of interest, someone you think we should talk to? Drop us a line. And don't forget, for all the latest curated news in lifestyle, wellness, finance, tech, so much more, all in one place, check out today's edition of our daily newsletter, The Morning Pulse. Want to see our latest content or search our archives? Well, check out our website, of course, and our streaming partners like Amazon, Roku, Samsung. There's over 100 to choose from. We're back again tomorrow for another edition of BRN AM. Until then, I'm Jeff Snyder. Stay safe, keep on saving, and don't forget, roll with the changes.
Waiting here for you to take and drink of. But if you're tired,
Now is your opportunity to co-create content around any topic on the first lifestyle and wellness network. Reach a global audience through our platform and co-own exclusive branded content. All of our programs are available on demand and also as audio-only podcasts, so you can take us on the go. Broadcast Retirement Network, available anytime, anywhere, and on any device.
Are you being audited and do you owe the IRS $10,000 or more in back taxes? Is the IRS threatening to take more of your money? Don't fight the IRS alone. The Tax Doctor is here to help you negotiate your tax bill and reduce your stress. The IRS can freeze your assets and seize your bank accounts, but you can stop these IRS actions. The Tax Doctor will work with you using our years of experience to represent your case to help you get the best resolution under the IRS guidelines. Help is here to deal with the IRS to reduce your stress. We've handled thousands of cases, so we know what we're doing. If you owe $10,000 or more in back taxes, do not call the IRS alone. Call a Tax Doctor now for a tax emergency analysis.
Call 800-224-6439.